Early state formation in South India, Tamilaham. Objectives. After reading this unit, you should be able to understand what ecozones constituted Tamilaham or South India of the early period, how the various forms of subsistence coexisted and interacted, how the different kinds of chiefdoms functioned, and how they represented different levels of political control. Introduction. In unit number 27, you will learn about early state formation in the Deccan under the Satavahanas. A similar situation is not seen in Tamilam during the period. We do not see the existence of a state power in the region but only chiefdoms. State presupposes the existence of a centralized political authority over a territory. Its authority would be based on the control of the territorial resources. It would have a regular system of taxation and organized defense. Facilitating both taxation and defense, the state would have a bureaucracy or a team of officials of different ranks and functions. On the other hand, a chiefdom would have no such evolved features. A chiefdom would be a society of hereditary status ruled by a chief. His authority would be the one based on the control of his people, bound by the concerned tribal or clannish ties of kinship. The chief would be the embodiment of the kinship relations of his people. There would be no regular taxation or periodic exaction of any revenue from the people, but only occasional voluntary payments to the chief. In this unit, you will be made familiar with the variety of chiefly powers and their levels of political development. The region. The land in between the hills of Venkatam and Kanyakumari is called Tamilaham. It includes the whole of the modern Tamil Nadu and Kerala, with forested hills, undulated terrains, pastures, arid zones, wetlands, and long sea coast. The region represented a combination of diverse ecozones. The three principal chiefdoms, the Cheras, Cholas, and the Pandyas, had their strongholds both in the interior as well as on the sea coast. The Cheras had Karur in the interior and Muziris, the well-known ancient port, on the west coast. The Cholas had Uraiyur in the interior and Puhar on the Coromandel coast as their strongholds. Similarly, the Pandyas had Madurai and Korkar as their interior headquarters and port respectively. These were the most important political centers of the period in the region. The five ecozones and subsistence pattern. The ecological patterns of the region are reflected in ancient Tamil poetry. This is in the form of the concept of Enthinai or five zones. In ancient Tamil poetry, Tamilam is portrayed as a combination of five Enthinais, viz. Kurinji, hilly backwoods; Palai, arid zone; Mullai, pastoral tracts; Marutam, wetland; and Neetal, sea coast. There could be areas in which one Thinai or the other dominates, but generally, most of the Thinais are fragmented and mixed up all over the region. The mode of human adaptation varied from Thinai to Thinai depending on its ecological conditions. The social groups also varied. The people of Kurinji took to hunting and gathering. Palai being dry land, the inhabitants over there could not produce anything. They took cattle lifting and plundering. The people of Mulai practiced animal husbandry and shifting cultivation. In the Marutam, the people could pursue plough agriculture, and in the Neetal, fishing and salt making. Thus, Tamilam had different forms of subsistence as determined by the ecological conditions of the five Thinais. People from each Thinai went out, interacting with the peoples of the other Thinais, and entered into barter of goods. For example, the people from the hilly backwoods came down to other zones for exchanging their resources like honey, meat, fruits, and other wild goods. The people of pastoral tracts exchanged their dairy products, and the coasted people fish and salt. Agrarian zones attracted all of them. The small, self-sustaining Thinais grew up into larger ecozones through such interaction and interdependence. There were larger zones of productivity as well as non-productivity. The zones of better productivity had a relatively developed social division of labor. In the zones of lesser productivity, the society was essentially simple and consisted of clans. By and large, the peoples of Tamilham represented a complex society of unevenly developed components which shared a common culture. The political level of the society varied from the simple chiefdom of clans to complex chiefdoms of ruling houses. A full-fledged state power was yet to take shape. Evolution of political society. The earliest recognizable phase of the evolution of political society can be seen in the chiefdoms of the clans. There were several chiefdoms of clans, some big and others very small. The chiefs of clan chiefdoms were addressed to in the poems as the great son, Peru Makan, or chiefly son, Ko Makan, indicating the relation between chiefs and their clan members. What is really indicating what is really indicated is the basis of kinship. Some such some such chiefdoms must have grown beyond kinship through the conquest and subjugation of other clans. The relatively larger chiefdoms of complex nature were born out of conquests and subjugation. Marriage alliances of chiefs also were responsible for the formation of larger chiefdoms, but the real basis of the enlargement of chiefdoms was their wealth. Chiefdoms with large agricultural areas constituted the most powerful ones. There were three such most powerful chiefdoms in contemporary Tamilaham, which the Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas. These chiefdoms represented the phase of the evolution of a political society anticipating the emergence of a real state. Different kinds of chiefdoms. There were three different kinds of chiefdoms in Tamilnadu. They were of the Kizar, little chiefs, Velir, bigger chiefs, and Vedar, the biggest chiefs. Categories of chiefs. The Kizar were headmen of small villages, that is Ur, generally bound by kinship. Many Kizar are mentioned in the poems. They are referred to by being prefixed with the name of their respective villages. Arn Kantur Kizar or Untur Kizar may be cited as example. Some of them were subjugated by the biggest chiefs and had to serve them in their campaigns. Poems refer to Kizar doing Vidu Tozil, obligatory services to bigger chiefs like Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas in their campaigns. The bigger chiefs in their turn rewarded the Kizar through gifts which include grant of predatory control over the subjugated villages. Such Kizar sometimes received control over certain other villages also as rewards for serving bigger chiefs. The Velir were mostly hill chieftains, though there were Velir controlling lowlands too. The hill chiefs were hunter chiefs, Vetar Koman and Koravar Koman or Nedu Vetuvan. Vetar, Koravar, and Vetuvar were the major clansmen of the hills, dominated by the Velir. Venkatamalai, the hills of the Venkatam. Nanjimalai, the high ranges of the south of Travancore. Parampuralai, probably modern Parampikulam, Azar forest near Polachi. Potilmalai, high ranges in the modern Madurai district, are some of the important centers of the hill chiefs of the period. The Chera, Chola, and Pandyas were the three principal ruling houses of the biggest category of chiefs. They were known as Muvendar, the three Sindar. These chiefly houses had control over peoples of larger areas. The Cheras controlled the peoples of the Kurinji dominated areas of the Western Ghats towards sea. The Cholas had control over the peoples in the Kaveri areas and the Pandyas in the south central area towards sea. They had several lesser chiefs under their service and paying tributes, that is, Tiarai. There was no notion of a precisely demarcated territory. The political authority functioned through control over peoples rather than privileges over basic resources. For example, the control over the people like Koravar or Vetar or Vetuvar by their chiefs made them chiefs. The hills as well as plains were collectively owned by such people. The right of their chiefs emanated from their kinship with the people. The resources were inhabited not by individuals but by groups whose members were bound by ties of common ancestry. These were descent groups, and they made voluntary payments to their chiefs. Regular and periodic payment of taxes was not in vogue. However, the productivity of the chiefdom determined the strength of the chiefs. Compared to the chiefs of agricultural areas, the pastoral and hunter chiefs were less powerful. Powerful chiefs tried to subjugate lesser ones and extracted tributes from them. Plunder raid was the characteristic feature of contemporary political practice. Plunder and booty redistribution. All chiefs, big and small, had to resort to plunder raids for satisfying the needs of their people. The chiefs redistributed the booty among their warriors, bards, and mendicants besides their own kinsmen. The institution of gift giving, that is Kodai, was integral to the practice of booty redistribution. Gift giving was considered to be the most important responsibility of any chief. Most of the poems in Purana Ruru, one of the anthologies under Atutokai, praise the generosity of chieftains. Generosity and bravery are the two major virtues of chieftains according to such poems. The insufficiency of local resources made chiefly plunders an economic imperative. A poem in Purana Ruru praising a chief, namely Urtur Kizar, shows how meager his resources were. When a dependent approached him for gifts, he called his blacksmith to give him a new lance so that he could go for a raid and acquire booty to give gifts. Plunder raids and booty redistribution thus became the characteristic feature of contemporary polity. Chiefs of all kinds indulged in plundering against one another. Lesser chiefs joined hands with the big ones in plunder campaigns and obtained their shares of booty. Cattle and grain constituted the routine items of booty. The bards of the period sing about the gifts of the elephants, horses, golden lotuses, chariots, gems, and muslin. Sometimes the raids of bigger chiefs involved subjugation of villages beyond their control. In such cases, the lesser chiefs assisting the bigger ones got the subjugated villages. It was not the land of the village that was granted, but the control over the people there. Muvendar and other levels of political control. The antiquity of the Muvendar as the principal ruling groups goes back to the modern period. Ashokan edicts mention them. The bards praise the Muvendar as crowned kings and mention that the whole of the Tamilaham belonged to them. The title of crowned kings need not necessarily indicate the establishment of state power. A state presupposes the existence of standing militia, regular taxation, bureaucracy, and local administrative bodies. These had not evolved as yet. Nonetheless, the authority of the Muvendar was significantly different from that of the other categories of chiefs. Their subjugation of lesser chiefs was an ongoing process. The main concern of all the three ruling groups, Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas, was subordination of Velir chiefs, who were next in importance. The Velir also had great antiquity, along with Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas. Satyaputras or the Adigaiman chiefs are also mentioned in the Ashokan edicts. Satyaputras were of the status of the Velir chiefs. They held sway over the communities in the high ranges of the upper Kaveri area. The other prominent Velir chiefdoms lay on the highlands and sea coast along the fringes of the areas of Muvendar. The modern districts of Dharmapuri, Nilgiris, Madurai North, Arcot, Tiruchirappalli, Paddukottai are the chief places of the hills and plains occupied by the Velir chiefs. There were about 15 important Velir chiefdoms in all as scattered in Tamilaham. Some of them had control over communities in strategic centers like points of exchange, ports, junctions of highways, and hill stations. Certain places and resources determined the nature of their power. With the coming of the period of Indo-Roman trade and control over strategic centers and trade goods added to the importance of the chiefs. Pari of Parambumalai near Polachi, Aryar of Podial Malai, Madurai, Andiran of Nanjil Malai, south of Travancore, Irunko Vale of Kodunbai, Puddukottai were some of the prominent Velir chiefs mentioned in the poems. Velir chiefs controlling such strategic centers had to face severe challenges from the superior chiefs like Muvendar. Sometimes such competitions led to the annihilation of the weak. The destruction of the domain of Pari, the Velir chief of Parambunandu by Muvendar, is a well-known example. Apart from direct combats, the bigger chiefs tried to gain access to the Velir domains through marriage relations also. There were several instances of the Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas taking their bridges from Velir families. In the case of village chiefs of strategic areas, the bigger chief adopted the method of military control. They were subjugated and made subservient to the bigger chiefs. Muvendar had several such subjugated chiefs as their subordinates, serving them in plunder raids. It is obvious that the Muvendar was most powerful political authority in contemporary tamilaham. Next to them was the political authority of Velir. The village chief of Kizar constituted the primary level of political authority, although this gives the impression of a political hierarchy. There was no determinate chain of political control uniting these three levels of political authority. Integration of the lesser chiefs was in progress under the subjugative and military policies of Movendar. But a unified political system was still in the making. The traditional authority over resident communities based on kinship remained fundamental to contemporary political control. Traditional assembly of elders transacted the day-to-day affairs in early settlement. The assembly site was called Manram, a raised seating around the foot of a tree. It was also called Podiyil. The chief was assisted by a council of elders called Avai, that is Sabha, the structure, composition, and functions of which are not known. Two other bodies often discussed as part of early Tamil polity are M. Perum Kuzu, or the 5 grade groups, and N. Perayam, or the 8 grade groups. These were relatively later bodies probably developed after 3rd century AD. The structure and functions of these bodies are also not known. Let us sum up. In this unit, you learnt about the various ecozones, their subsistence pattern, and the various details of the chiefdom's level political formation. You also learnt how the system of plunder raids and booty redistribution functioned as the crucial factor in the political practice of the time. Another important point you learnt is the basis of clan ties and kinship in the political authority. You could also learn about the gradual process of institution formation during the period after the 3rd century AD. Ecozones, ecozone क्या होता है? A small area with its own ecological characteristics such as climate, soil, condition, organism, etc. Tinai क्या होता है? Tinai होता है a region with its special ecological factors, social groups and subsistence pattern. Chiefdom होता है society of hereditary status controlled by a chief who collected voluntary tributes from his people. Muvendar होता है the 3 principal ruling groups, namely Chera, Chola and Pandyas. Velir, the chiefly groups next to the principal ones, that is next to the Movendars. Kizar होता है the smallest category of chiefs who had virtually the control over their descent groups. Manram or Podiyil, a raised seating around the foot of a tree.